Welcome to Headline Hub Updates. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more updates. The world is transfixed by viral footage, images that have ricocheted across social media and news outlets, showing a Chinese Coast Guard ship unleashing powerful water cannons on a Philippine supply boat near 2nd Thomas Shoal. The confrontation is raw, immediate, and impossible to ignore. The smaller, rust-streaked Philippine vessel is dwarfed by the imposing Chinese ship, battered relentlessly by high-pressure jets in a tense and dangerous standoff. The sheer imbalance of power is stark, yet the resolve of the Philippine crew is unmistakable. This is not fiction, it's the South China Sea, September 2025. The tension here is real, and the consequences could be historic. Each incident like this pushes the US and China, both nuclear powers with global reach, closer to a confrontation neither side truly wants. The world holds its breath as the risk of escalation grows. The Philippines, caught between these giants, is the unwilling centerpiece of a global chess match. Its islands and waters have become the stage for a high-stakes power struggle. For China, these waters are about national destiny, economic survival, and asserting its place in the world. Control here means security and prosperity for generations. For the US, it's about upholding global order, defending an ally, and maintaining freedom of navigation in one of the world's busiest trade routes. Philippine vessels, outmatched but determined, symbolize a nation's fight for sovereignty and dignity. Their courage in the face of overwhelming odds has captured international attention. The world watches anxious as diplomats scramble behind closed doors and military planners prepare for the worst-case scenarios. Every move is scrutinized, every word weighed. The US-Philippine Mutual Defense Treaty means a single misstep could trigger a direct American response, raising the stakes for everyone involved. The South China Sea is now a potential flashpoint for global crisis, where a local clash could spiral into something far larger. Why has this stretch of water become so contested? What draws so many nations to these turbulent seas? We'll explore the deep interests of China and the US, the immense economic stakes, and the Philippines' central role in this unfolding drama. This is not just a regional dispute, it's a test of international order, a challenge to the rules that have governed peace for decades. The choices made here will ripple across the world, affecting economies, alliances, and the balance of power. The stakes could not be higher. What happens next will shape the future, not just for the region, but for the entire world. Why is the Philippines so important to both Beijing and Washington? What makes this Southeast Asian nation a focal point in the ongoing rivalry between the world's two superpowers? The answer starts with geography. The Philippine archipelago stretches across thousands of islands, sitting right on the edge of the South China Sea. It forms a natural barrier between the vast Pacific Ocean and the Asian mainland, making it a critical crossroads for trade, security, and influence in the region. For China, the Philippines is a key link in the so-called First Island Chain, a string of islands crucial for projecting naval power and expanding its reach into the Pacific. Control or influence here means greater security for China's coastline and more leverage over regional sea lanes. For the United States, the Philippines is a strategic ally and a forward base. It's vital for monitoring China's activities, projecting American power, and responding quickly to any crisis in the region. The US military presence here is a cornerstone of its Indo-Pacific strategy. The 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty cements this partnership, binding the two nations together in a security alliance that has lasted for decades and shaped the region's military balance. But the Philippines is more than just a military outpost. It's also a battleground for competing visions. US democracy and international law on one side, versus China's economic influence and its alternative model of governance on the other. Both superpowers actively court Manila, offering aid, investment, and diplomatic support, making the Philippines a fulcrum of regional power and a prize in the contest for influence. The Philippines must constantly balance its choices, lean too far toward the US, and it risks provoking China's anger and possible economic retaliation. But if it leans toward China, it risks undermining its own sovereignty, democratic values, and long-standing alliances. Every move Manila makes is closely scrutinized in both Washington and Beijing, with global media watching for any sign of a shift in allegiance or policy. The Philippines is not just a bystander in this great power rivalry. It's the pivot on which Southeast Asia's balance of power rests, influencing the direction of the entire region. Its choices, political, economic, and military, will help shape the future of Southeast Asia for years to come. That's why the world's eyes are fixed on Manila. The stakes are enormous, and the decisions made here will echo far beyond its shores. The South China Sea is the world's economic superhighway. 1/3 of global shipping, over $5 trillion in trade, passes through these waters each year. Disruption here would send shockwaves through global supply chains, causing shortages and chaos. Beneath the waves lie vast reserves of oil and natural gas, energy lifelines for China and its neighbors. The sea is also a vital fishing ground, feeding millions and sustaining coastal communities, but overfishing and aggressive tactics by Chinese vessels threaten these resources. Filipino fishermen are often chased from their own waters, endangering livelihoods and food security. The South China Sea is also a battleground for international law. China's sweeping claims defy the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, challenging the rules-based order. The struggle here is about more than territory, it's about the future of global norms. What happens in these waters affects the entire world. The stakes are as high as the waves. For China, the South China Sea is an economic lifeline. Over 80% of its imported oil passes through these waters, especially the vulnerable Strait of Malacca. Fearing blockade, China has built a Great Wall of sand, artificial islands turned into military bases. These outposts, with runways and missile systems, let China project power far from its shores. China claims almost the entire sea, overlapping the exclusive zones of its neighbors. Despite a 2016 tribunal ruling against its claims, Beijing rejects international law and enforces its will with Coast Guard and militia fleets. The goal: make Chinese control a permanent reality, push the US out, and dominate East Asia. The Great Wall of Sand is China's challenge to the regional order. It's a bold move to secure its future and reshape the balance of power. The stakes are nothing less than who rules the seas. The world is watching. The US counters China's expansion with a strategy built on the principle of freedom of navigation, a cornerstone of international maritime law. American warships regularly sail through these contested waters, challenging China's expansive claims and asserting international rights to ensure open sea lanes. These freedom of navigation operations send a clear and unmistakable message. The South China Sea is not China's private domain but a shared global resource. The US has significantly strengthened its alliance with the Philippines, expanding access to strategic bases and pre-positioning forces to enhance regional security. Joint military exercises like Balikatan have grown larger and more complex over the years, boosting readiness and enhancing deterrence capabilities. America's approach is integrated deterrence, a strategy that combines military power, diplomatic efforts, and strong alliances to maintain peace. The US works closely with partners like Japan, Australia, and the UK to present a united front against potential threats. The ultimate goal is to convince China that any form of aggression will be too costly and counterproductive. By building a robust network of alliances and maintaining a credible military presence, the US aims to keep the region free, open, and prosperous. The message is clear and resolute. America will defend its interests and its allies with unwavering commitment. The South China Sea is a critical test of international resolve and strategic patience. The outcome of these disputes will shape the future of the Indo-Pacific region. The stakes are global, and the world is watching closely. The Philippines is not a helpless pawn. It's an assertive player with its own agenda. Manila has shifted from accommodation to defending its sovereignty, exposing Chinese aggression to the world. The Philippine Coast Guard now documents and publicizes incidents, rallying international support. This name-and-shame strategy turns a regional dispute into a global story. The Philippines is also modernizing its military, acquiring new ships, patrol boats, and missiles to raise the cost of aggression. Diplomatically, Manila is building a coalition, strengthening ties with the US, Japan, Australia, and even European powers. By forging alliances, the Philippines ensures it's not alone. It's turning a bilateral dispute into a multilateral issue, reinforcing that the South China Sea is a global commons. The Philippines is shaping its own destiny. Its actions inspire others to stand up for their rights. The world is taking notice. The conflict comes into sharp focus at places like Second Thomas Shoal. Here, Filipino Marines hold out on a grounded ship, resupplied by boats that must run a gauntlet of Chinese vessels. Each mission is a high-stakes drama. Chinese ships block, harass, and use water cannons, risking disaster. In 2016, the Philippines won a landmark legal victory. An international tribunal ruled China's claims illegal. But China rejected the ruling and doubled down on its tactics. The gap between law and power is stark. The Philippines has the law, China has the ships. This clash defines the struggle: legal rights versus brute force. The region remains on a knife's edge. A single miscalculation could spark catastrophe. The world holds its breath. Every encounter in the South China Sea risks catastrophic escalation. A collision or fatality could trigger the US-Philippine Mutual Defense Treaty, forcing America to choose defend its ally or risk war with China. Such a conflict would cripple global trade, shatter supply chains, and plunge the world into recession. The human and economic costs would be immense. A war between the US and China would destroy decades of international cooperation and force nations to pick sides. The conflict could spill into cyberspace, space, and the global economy, igniting a new Cold War. The small boats in these waters are sailing on the edge of a global abyss. Their fate is tied to the peace and prosperity of billions. The stakes are not just regional, they're planetary. The world's future could hinge on a single misstep. The risk is real, the world is watching. The Philippines is the keystone of the Indo-Pacific. Its choices and resilience shape the region's stability. If Manila yields to China, the strategic landscape shifts. China dominates, the US retreats, and smaller nations lose hope. But a strong Philippines inspires others, upholds international law, and helps build a collective security network. By standing firm, Manila raises the cost of aggression and promotes balance. The Philippines proves that smaller nations can resist larger powers. The world is at a crossroads with Manila at the center. The path chosen here will define whether the future is ruled by law or force. Will the seas remain open or be carved up by might? Filipino sailors, diplomats, and leaders are on the front lines of this struggle. Their courage will shape not just their nation, but the world. The stakes are global. The world is watching,